Hi friends, and welcome back to another video. Today I am wrapping up everything that I read in October. I had such a productive reading month. I was really just stoked to be reading everything that I did read, and at the end of the month I took part in the Vampathon, but because I was very excited about it, I kind of just started the month reading Vampathon inspired books. So I definitely cheated in terms of reading it longer than a week and counting those as prompts, but I'm just going to go ahead and talk to you about what I read. So before I forget, Vampathon is hosted by Jodie from Vanilla Moon. I think she's just Jodie on BookTube now. But yeah, it's basically reading spooky kind of prompting books for a week. There's photo prompt challenges that you can do on Instagram, and yeah, it's just a lot of fun. So I was vlogging it, and I will get that video up for you later on in the month. So let's get all the sort of genre trackers and demographics and stuff like that out of the way, and then we'll get into the reviews. So during October I read 5 fantasy books, 1 sci-fi, 1 non-fiction memoir / poetry, 1 literary fiction, 2 mystery thriller horror kind of things. In terms of age of the book, 10 of them were contemporary and 1 of them was a classic. 2 of them were aimed at YA in terms of readers, 1 was aimed at middle grade, and the rest were aimed at adults. I read 1 book that was a library loan, 10 books that I hauled recently, like this year or so, 7 books that were backlisted books, so books that are older than the last 2 years or so, and 4 books that were released newly, so 2020 onwards. And I read all of the 11 books as a standard physical read. I also had 1 buddy read in the month, which I will get to when it is time to review that book. So starting off the month strong, actually, I read Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, which was my first time reading this. I'd never read this at all. I think I might have watched an adaptation of it once years ago, but yeah, this was my first time reading it and I absolutely loved it. So I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. It was originally published in 1847. This I consider to be a classic adult fiction, and this particular publisher was Penguin Classics Deluxe Edition. This beautiful artwork is by the artist, bear with, Toledo. So this is by specifically Ruben Toledo, because they're a husband-wife kind of artist duo, and it's absolutely stunning. I got this a couple of years in Foyles. I think it might have been my first ever trip into a Foyles when they opened one in Chelmsford Town, and yeah, it's absolutely stunning. All the artwork sort of just carries through. It's just beautiful. It was a really beautiful edition to read. Deckled edges, I love deckled edges, so yeah, this one was for the prompt of a gothic or spooky cover for the Vampathon. So I think a lot of people probably know what Wuthering Heights is about, but it's basically this tragic love story following Heathcliff and Cathy, or Catherine, as they've kind of got like this forbidden love, this forbidden romance, and it ends in doom and gloom. It is dramatic, there's turmoil, there's depression, it's just, there's violence, there's a lot of violence, cruelty to others and themselves, and there's incest in a way as well, because people are marrying like cousins and also growing up together and then getting romantic feelings for each other. So there's that sort of vibe. If you're not into that, not that I'm into it, it's just I could read it fine, you know what I mean, but that was definitely one of the things that made me feel a bit funny. But yeah, it is this epic love story, you know, kind of how focusing on fixation more than anything, like this fixation and obsession to be with each other. And yeah, it was intense. So yeah, it was tragic, intense. The story was very intoxicating. We're following these really quite toxic, unlikable characters, I feel, very hateable characters, but I still managed to feel for them despite whatever wrong they'd done to each other or themselves, or however cruel they were. I still empathised to an extent with a lot of them, and I felt that was quite a cool technique, or I don't know, creation to get people to feel, because I struggle when there's no likeable characters, and for me to feel so much emotion for non-likeable characters, good piece of writing, I would say. The writing, again, absolutely immersive. I was worried that I was going to struggle with reading this because only this year really I've been foraging, I don't know if foraging is the right term in this instance. I've been exploring more classics, so I'm still quite new to it. I don't really have an understanding beyond GCSE English literature, so, and that was years ago, but I very much found this enjoyable, easy to read, immersive. Yeah, it was great fun. The only thing that I really didn't like, obviously the unlikable characters, but it kind of worked in this. There was just so much incest and I wasn't expecting that. As I say, I can read past it. I enjoyed it like regardless, but that was just like gross. I'm like, dude, you're like brothers and sisters and cousins and stuff. It was just a bit weird, but 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely adored this. I'll have to check out the other sisters books, which I'm planning to at some point anyway, but I just got to this one first. Okay, and then I finished up the Rampant trilogy. This is the final book called The Fall of Coley by M.R. Carey. I have been borrowing these from the library and I actually forgot that I do need to give it back. I think it's due on the 11th, so I've got some time. So this one I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. This released in 2021. It's adult sci-fi, published by Orbit. So I obviously won't go into too much depth about specifics of this book because it is the final book in the trilogy, but you guys know I've been struggling with this series for the past 3 months at this point, but for some reason I just felt like I wanted to carry on. I got them all out from the library and I thought, well, I might as well just give them a read. And that is what I did. So I think this one I enjoyed the most out of all of them. We're basically following like a post-apocalyptic kind of world where everything is deadly. Everything has been enhanced by technology years and years before, which is probably like our time now in real life. And so like the trees are deadly. These beasts are completely like genetically modified to be just deadly. Deadlier than normal beasts would be. And yeah, everything's just gone to shit basically. So we're following a very isolated village, and then within that village a character called Coley. So yeah, more entertaining. I enjoyed that we had like a more quick switch of perspectives, specifically in the final battle, because I felt like we could quickly see what was happening. It didn't lose the kind of like pacing of those scenes, and you can see like what the opposite person was thinking, and I was like, okay, cool, it's piecing it together nicely, it's keeping that fast pace, and I don't feel like I'm missing any of the action, so I enjoyed that. But in terms of cons, I had much the same issues as before, so I just felt like it was generally quite dull, a lot of repetition in this, and just way too long for me. So yeah, I'm going to put this on the floor now so that I remember to take it with me to work so I can take it to the library. But yeah, that wasn't for a Vampathon prompt, that was just one that I was already reading. So, one that I did want to have for a Vampathon prompt, but didn't seem to fit anything, I don't think, was my next read, and that is Grief is the Thing with Feathers by Max Porter. So this one I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. It released in 2015, I think it was Max Porter's debut book. It's adult literary fiction and it is by Faber and Faber. So we are following a family of 3, a father and 2 sons, kind of going through grief as they have lost their mother, and during this grief, this crow, this weird mystical strange crow, basically barges into their lives and says, kind of like Nanny McPhee, I'm gonna stay here and help you heal until you don't need me. But he has some weird concepts of healing. It's very bizarre. It kind of feels like bizarro fiction. I definitely enjoyed the exploration of grief in this one, as well as the use of the crow in order to kind of guide the characters through it, especially when you look at the different perspectives of being like young sons of different ages and the dad, like how they all reacted and interacted with the crow and each other. Writing itself draws very interesting imagery. I feel like you can really see how Porter was to grow. I really loved Lanny. I ended up giving that 5 stars, so I feel like this definitely feels like the author had potential, do you know what I mean? Like potential to really expand that unique storytelling and way of writing. But yeah, I just feel like it didn't compare to the level of skill displayed in Lanny, which, I mean, fair enough. You know, this was his first book, but nevertheless, it was an enjoyable read, and I'm glad that I finally got to it. Another book that wasn't part of my Vampathon reading was The Glamorous by Luanji Smith. This is the sequel to The Vine Witch, which I have a full video review on my channel if you're interested in learning a little bit more in detail. So obviously I won't be going into too much specifics again because it is a sequel to a book. But I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. This one I released in 2020 by 47 North, which is like an Amazon independent publisher, and it's kind of like adult fantasy. So The Vine Witch is kind of like a really cool immersion of magic with the crafting of wine and bears and that sort of way, but there's more to it. Like, learning from these books, you can really see a different, bigger world of what kind of magics are available and around in this world. We were following Eleanor in the first book, so you do get different perspectives. There are some characters that end up being more important than you think in the first book, and they carry through in these ones. I'm currently reading the third book at the minute, and we're following another one of those characters. But Eleanor's always bubbling under the surface. At first I was a bit unsure because I thought it was going to be like a direct sequel just with her, but I ended up really quite enjoying this, despite her not being constantly at the front centre, you know. So yeah, I really enjoyed looking at the new kind of magic, learning about the different magic systems and kind of like how they worked, as well as the character finding that magical self and watching them grow and adapt into it and stuff, and kind of appreciating themselves. Again, seeing our main character called Yvette become more trusting of people was really heartwarming, and also the unravelling of the mystery surrounding Yvette's lineage, how do you say that, heritage, lineage, you know what I mean, was really fun to explore as well. So in terms of cons, I only really have one. I would say I definitely felt like it took me more time to invest in the plot of this in comparison to how quickly I got interested by The Vine Witch. But I think sometimes that's what's going to happen with like series. Like, you have that excitement, that novelty of the first of something, you know, and then that does wear off as the sequels go on. But nevertheless, it was still quite a strong read and a very fun one at that too. Okay, so back to the books that I read during Vampathon, or for Vampathon. Keeping in mind now, this isn't that actual legit week. I was just reading like this all month because I'm cheeky and I wanted to feel those creepy, spoopy, Halloweeny vibes all month round. So that is exactly what I did. And this one was for the prompt of spooky graphic novel or manga, and for that I chose my first Junji Ito book, and that was Uzumaki, Spiral into Horror. So this one says, Kuruzucho, a small fog-bound town on the coast of Japan, is cursed. According to Tsuchi Saito, the withdrawn boyfriend of teenager Kirikoshima, the town is haunted not by a person but by a pattern. Uzumaki, the spiral, the hypnotic secret shape of the world, fall into a whirlpool of horror. This was terrifying. So I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. It originally released in 2000. Horror manga adult by Viz Media. This was scary. So I think it is that added benefit of seeing like the intricate detail in the art that really kind of just was more in depth than my imagination could probably give. That was horrifying. That was really scary to kind of read and see, and oh, it freaked me out. It was such a unique story as well. Like, it definitely didn't fall flat in one or the other. I feel sometimes with manga or comics and something, like the art can be really crap and you can't get invested in the story because you're looking at art that you don't mesh with, or the art could be really awesome but it's just surface level and the story doesn't grip you. But this had everything, I feel. I've never read anything like this before, so it was like super unique to me in terms of plot, and it made me feel so much in terms of emotions and just feelings. Like, I was disgusted, I was in awe, I felt uncomfortable, I just wanted to turn away from the page and set it on fire and just leave it and walk away and not think about it again. So it definitely did its job. I loved it. It was disgusting and gory and grim, and I need to explore more horror manga. So if you have any suggestions, please let me know. following up immediately after, I checked out Gaio, again by Junji Ito, and this is The Death Stench Creeps. And this one I used for 2 prompts. 3 prompts, because I was being cheeky. I used it for a horror book, blood on the cover, and read a book in the dark. Although technically it wasn't necessarily dark. I think the majority of the time that I was reading this, it was like daytime into lunchtime into nighttime, and I didn't have the light on, so it was probably faded into a darker day without a light on. So I mean, yeah, I'm kind of bending the rules a little bit. But anyway, so this is Gaio, or Gaio, I don't know. And I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. It released in 2002. Again, same information, horror manga, adult, Viz Media. This one says, the floating smell of death hangs over the island. What is it? A strange-legged fish appears on the scene. So begins Tadashi and Kaori's spiral into the horror and stench of the sea. Ugh. Hold your breath until all is revealed. Something's rotting in Okinawa. It was gross. It was so gross, so vivid. The illustrations made me feel like I was part of the story, part of the horror. That I could smell the rotten, dead stench. It was strange, it was trippy. So immersive to the fact that I felt like I could like awaken all my senses, even though I didn't want to because it sounded grim. But that is excellent storytelling. Again, super unique, super scary. I also enjoyed the short story at the back called The Enigma of Imigara Falls. One of my work friends was actually telling me about this story because I was reading this during my lunch break, or reading Uzumaki, and he was saying he read a short story about holes, and then he didn't think it was a manga. He might have read like a synopsis or something, but I saw the manga short story at the back and I was like, was it this one? And he was like, yes. And that made me so uncomfortable, like the holes of these people, like people shaped holes. Looking at it made me feel like sick. But yeah, this was good. I enjoyed Uzumaki more because I feel like there was a more fleshed out story, and I don't know, I just enjoyed more time with it. But I still liked this one as well. So much so that I bought Tomi as well recently. So hopefully I can get that read, you know, soon enough. So next up I had my buddy read with Kat from Kat's Reading Corner, and that was Land of Stories World Collide by Chris Colfer, and this was the final book in the Land of Stories series, and I feel sad because I don't have another one to pick up in this month, and I'm like, oh. But there are some spin-off series. I think there's a graphic novel with Goldilocks. I think a new series has like 2 or 3 books out, Kat said, already, following different characters within the magical world, I think. So maybe I'll give those a go eventually. But I ended up making this one kind of fit a prompt as well, very last minute, and that was for blood is used as magic. There's a character in here that it was ever so gently mentioned that is what happened for something to be able to occur, and so I just used that and I was like, okay, that can fill that prompt. Basically I feel like I've been talking about this, well, for the last 6 months. We're following twins Alex and Connor as they stumble into a magical fairy tale world. They realise all the stories and all the bedtime nurseries and things like that they were told growing up are real. They're real life people, and they are able to slip into that world, basically. So I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. It released in 2017 by Little Brown and Company, and it is middle grade fantasy. So yeah, this one had me feeling all of the emotions. I really enjoyed my time reading this. It had some amazing climactic conclusions, and I just feel like generally it was such a well-rounded finale to a series that I very much enjoyed. So yes, thank you very much, Kat, for reading this with me. I enjoyed our time going through these stories and getting to know these characters. Yes, very sad now though. Okay, so the next 2 books I actually talked a bit about in my Vampathon reading vlog, so I won't go too much into depth because I discussed it in there. But I have here the Virago Book of Witches by Howdee-haie, and I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. It is folklore, fantasy, adult kinda. 1993 was when it was released, and it was published by Virago, sorry, which is an imprint of Little Brown and Company. It's another stunning cover. So this one I had as my witchy vibes prompt. Very much enjoyed this one, as I say, 4 out of 5 stars. definitely check out that reading vlog if you want more sort of in-depth feelings as and when. Basically it's a collection of 50 short stories, some are really super short, about witches, witchcraft, Wicca, the occult, from all over the world, different legends and lore and mythologies that centers around witches. So yeah, that was a fun one. As I say, another book that is part of the Vampathon reading vlog is Mina and the Undead by Amy McCall. This one was so much fun. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. This was for the prompt of, I'll find it in a minute, book with a gothic setting. So yeah, this released this year, 2021, YA fantasy by UClan Publishing, and we're following Mina, who for the summer goes to visit her sister who's studying at uni in New Orleans, and she kind of gets a job at the same place her sister works, which is this haunted movie mansion kind of experience place, like for tours and stuff. And yeah, her and her sister have a bit of an estranged, tense relationship. There's a lot of things that have happened regarding their parents and regarding themselves, and conversations of abandonment and resentment bubbling under the surface. But as well as that, there are murders taking place, and these two sisters, specifically Mina, keeps getting caught up in all of this. So yeah, that's kind of the synopsis of it, and I will leave it there, but I very much enjoyed it. Check out the vlog if you want to know more. Right, so the second to last book I read was, again, not Vampathon related, but that was Michaela Cole's Misfit, a personal manifesto. And this is a book that is kind of taken from a lecture that she had given a couple of years ago, talking about people, about race, class and gender, specifically kind of in the film and TV media industry. This one released in 2021, this year as well. Non-fiction, Penguin Random House is the publisher. So I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. I felt like it definitely had some powerful themes to explore, but the moth analogy in particular was a bit too far strung for me. I just couldn't connect. I guess I don't really have an interest in film and media, and maybe that's why I couldn't connect, but it is worth a read if you definitely are interested in that sort of thing. And I keep meaning to check out her shows, particularly I May Destroy You, because that looks really good. Okay, and the last book I read, which once again is part of Vampathon and it's already in my reading vlog, is, let me turn my page, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Season of the Witch by Sarah Reese Brennan. This one I gave a 4.5 stars, released in 2019, YA fantasy by Scholastic Ltd Limited, whatever. This one I chose as set in a school. So this one, we're following Sabrina. It's basically a prequel story to the events of the first season. So we're following her in the summer before her 16th birthday and her dark baptism, and she's having a lot of self-doubt, which is strange for her because she's always so sure. She's kind of understanding that magic may not be the be-all and end-all fixer that she thinks it is, and she's having to get into situations that is testing her relationships with her friends and her family and Harvey, her boyfriend. This was very much a load of fun. I really enjoyed it. I liked the random black pages that we had in between, like sort of sub chapters I guess, called What Happens in the Dark. That was really cool. But yes, I very much enjoyed this. And my favourite book of the month, I've got to say, was Wuthering Heights, because I was blown away by this, shocked at how much I actually loved it. And now I just want to consume everything Wuthering Heights related. I really do need to check out some more like TV shows and films adaptations and figure out if I have actually seen one. I swear I saw one on the BBC one time, but it might have been another. I don't know. So I did really well, I think, for the Vampathon. I think even if I didn't count the whole month's worth of reading, I still would have read or finished like 3 books in that week, which is awesome. I'm still currently in the middle of Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice, but I'm enjoying that so far. And there were 7 prompts that I didn't get to. So, I mean, I'm quite happy. I did my best and I'm quite chuffed with how it turned out. So, let me know if you took part in the Vampathon or maybe another kind of Halloween inspired readathon. Let me know, put them on my radar, because I'd love to try more in the next couple of years. And yeah, what your favourite book of the month was, what your least favourite book of the month was and why. And I'll catch you in another video soon. Bye!
Baby, you don't know what you do to me, between me and you.